Hi, my name is Isaac Parks. What you're about to watch is the last 10 or 12 weeks of a documented journey that I've been going on. There are incredibly high highs, incredibly low lows, so I invite you today to come relive this journey with me. Or in other words, welcome to the new series, Joe Schmo 2 Pro, where I'm pretty much going to treat my life like a real life Let's Play as I try to make it to the NFL starting at ground zero, which is semi-pro. Obviously, this is going to be really hard, but all I need is some good game film and pads, do well at a free agent combine, and I should be able to start getting some serious looks, so let me catch you up on everything at this moment. My name is Isaac Parks. I was an All-American punter in 2018 and 2019 at the Division II level, averaging 43.9 yards in 2018 and 45.6 yards in 2019. In 2020, there was a little disease called COVID. You may have heard of it. I hit the portal and transferred to UNC Charlotte, where the compliance guy made an oopsie and they brought me in without realizing I actually couldn't play D1 thanks to some complicated rules, so I just tried for NFL stuff, going to the Coles free agent combine in the winter of 21, where I had a 51-yard average and averaged 4.55 seconds of hang, and then I had my pro day where I averaged like 49 yards, but had 4.66 seconds of hang. You can find all this film online. Didn't get a call that season, so I went to the Zonner combine in 22, where I laid a bit of an egg, averaging 42.25 yards a punt and about 4.5 seconds of hay, but then that really made me come back strong as I went out to the Novak combine in April, averaging 50 yards a punt with 4.8 seconds of hang. That still bought no look, so in a desperate act, I talked to another college where they said I still had one semester of D2 to play, so I went back to Lake Erie in Ohio, and then their compliance guy made it oopsie where it figured out that I also couldn't play D2 anymore either, meaning that I have now gone 3 years since I have played in a live game, which is why I'm going to semi-pro, because I just need any film. Anyway, I had just had one scrimmage and one preseason game, so the scrimmage was short. There was like 5 punts, but I was absolutely mashing them. Naturally, I left my camera. Luckily, my amazing fiance was able to nab this. It was like 58 to 62 yards with 4.5 seconds of hang. Went over the guy's head. He was able to recover it. Nothing really spicy happened. He ran around for a bit. We weren't really allowed to tackle him. Now, for the preseason game, this is where the Let's Play part begins, because as you can imagine, semi-pro doesn't always have great long snappers, so I am blessed to have a guy that can get it back to me even if I'm only at 12 yards most of the time. Even though it poses some challenges, being that close to the line, like, well, you'll see in a bit. So my main goal of this game, 2 things. 1, for the love of God, stay healthy, which means no matter what, get that ball off as fast as possible, get it on the ground if need be. It doesn't really matter. I really want to put film out there of when things are going right, aka whenever I get a ball in my lap, I better do something with it, which comes to part 2. If I get a good snap, make the most of it. So, ball 1, get out there. Not gonna lie, I'm like taking an eye, looking around at what they've got. They've got like a little bit of a spread punt return, which you don't see very often. They pretty much are playing it like a regular defense, and I'm not really thinking that they're bringing much of a rush, so I'm like, okay, cool. But as you can tell, the weather's pretty buns, and the ground I'm standing on is especially buns. So, as I was punting and taking my steps, I low-key slipped. I ducked the ball, which should have been like a gimme nuke because it was one of my good snaps that game, but it still went a smooth little 38 in the air, rolled another 7 or 8 yards, was down at the 15, so a nice little net of 45 to 50 yards. I can't actually remember where the ball was specifically. Next punt, I noticed that the ground was bad beforehand, so I planned my steps accordingly. So as you can see, there's a bit of a muddy patch that was a little bit worse to my right than it was down the middle, so I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna kick it down the middle, and I caught the ball way cleaner, hitting a nice 50-yard punt. Even though the hang wasn't that good, it was only a little over 4.2, I couldn't really explode through the ball with the ground being kind of as mushy as it was. But what was good was the dude dropped it. My teammates absolutely demolished them, getting us the ball back in the red zone. However, we still did not score on the drive. Anyway, it wasn't until the next quarter that I had another punt, but this time I was back in the mud, and the rain had made the ball pretty slippery, which wouldn't have been too much of an issue, except the snap came down a little short, so I could only really grab it with my fingertips, meaning it slipped, and then I just immediately went back to objective 1. Try to stay healthy, screw it, going the little 36-yarder down the field, which for the situation I was in, wasn't too mad at. And then walking back out there, this is a real semi-pro moment here, okay? This game was definitely defensive/special teams. The score is still 0-0, but I felt like we were playing some solid 1950s ball because, good God, they lined me up with the ball at like the 30-yard line to go punt, which was where me being only 12 yards away from the snap really screwed me because my personal protector saw that there was pressure coming on the opposite side and decided to run towards it, bringing himself within inches of that ball. I saw him there. I tried to do my best to make sure it didn't hit him in the back of the head, so I popped it up and that ball fell down not very far from where I had initially kicked it, but got to the sidelines. I talked to him. We cleared it up. Next punt, hammered a 53-yarder in the air, which was going to be so gorgeous, except it rolled 1 yard forward, which sucks because that 1 yard was directly into the end zone. And the last punt was just a little bit high, but I was able to get it off. Like I said, there wasn't really anything offensively moving, so at this point I realized it was just more important to get the ball off than it was to try to do something fancy with it. Got it off, and it went a little over 38 yards, so yeah.
1 week later.
Last week I had a proper rough time handling the snap, so I really only got 2 clips to add to the highlight tape. I'm gonna need a lot more than that to fix this, but this episode has a lot going on. I have 2 weeks before my next game, but then immediately after I have a free agent combine that I just registered for, and it's my revenge tour with Coach Gary Zahner in Gilbert, Arizona. Now remember, I didn't do too well last time I went there, only averaging 40 yards a punt, and it's exactly 2 days after my first game, so I have to train properly. The hardest part about these next 2 weeks is I have to train both for a combine and an actual game, which are 2 very different styles of punting. Last year at Zahner's, I had 3 punts right, 3 punts left, and 2 hang time punts, so I should expect something similar to that. On top of that, I also put on some weight, so I'm going to be going on a light diet as well as hitting the gym so I can look the part in front of scouts, which there will be a ton of at this combine. So, the important things I need to do while training is making sure I'm working on my operation time, which is how fast I get the ball off. That will help me handle the adverse snaps of semi-pro, so I can have a higher success rate of getting good film than 2 out of 6 like last game. So that's what I'll be working on, and I even posted a video on how I train for adversity the best way. I'll also be getting after it in the gym a lot, so I need to make sure I'm getting my legs stronger so I can focus more on just being in good form and let my leg strength carry me to a big ball instead of having to kick as hard as I can. So all of this takes me to my team's last practice before the big game, which is 7 days before game 1, where I got to test myself out a bit. The sunshine was beautiful, but coming off a nasty weather day, the field was anything but. Balls were slippery and hard to catch, and a lot of times didn't even get back to me, so I just had to remember what I practiced. Stay calm and try to get a pretty decent ball off, and from how I was hitting, it was a pretty decent day altogether. I'm feeling pretty confident going into one of the most important weeks of my life. So Monday came around and it was time to grind. Took on the day with some legs to really help those muscles fire so I can smoke the ball, and then after that I went to go get some kicking work, just focusing on striking a clean, smooth ball and get myself in the right mental space for both a game and a combine. But then everything came to a halt on Tuesday. Disaster struck in the form of a sickness. I was completely out of commission for 3 days, and it wasn't until Friday that I really started coming to. I didn't even have a chance to record, meaning I really only had 1 day to get into the swing of things before my game, and then immediately after that game, I wouldn't be able to kick again until the combine. Not necessarily a key to success, but getting out there to kick Friday, I was at least feeling alright, even though I was only kicking at about 60%, which brings me to Saturday, game day. It was the time for the Outlaws to take on the Chiefs. Now, before I head out to the field, I had to get my game day look going, which is where, in the future, I really need your guys' help. You see, I've got a terrible sense of fashion for game day gear, so if you have some suggestions, go ahead and drop them in the comments, and I'll shout you out if I use your suggestion, and as a community, we will slowly advance my game day swag until I look like a freaking stud. So today, though, I knew I wanted to wear a hat on the sideline, and I had to pick through all my hats, so I just decided to go with a plain black Adidas hat that was just speaking to me. For undershirts, I could either go with a black and gray long sleeve, a black long sleeve, or just a throwback Under Armour. Deciding between the 3 is rough for me because I have no sense of taste, but the Under Armour is what I ended up selecting, so I picked that up and then drove over to the stadium. Now, we had barely stepped out onto the field together when the chirping between the 2 teams had begun, meaning that today more than ever I needed to keep myself safe because I knew they were going to be playing a little dirty. Ball 1, I step out there, and it doesn't look like they're bringing too much heat, but the guys that they're bringing are definitely coming after it. Also, despite the short sleeves and warm persona I'm carrying around, I'm cold as all get out, and my fingers at this point are completely numb due to my inability to read a weather forecast and thinking that since it's 60 degrees in the middle of the day, surely it will be 60 degrees at night as well. This will 100% play a factor in how I mold the ball, as you'll see my hands get a little sloppy as the night goes on. Anyway, I get the ball off. It's nothing to write home about. It went 40 yards in the air, wasn't fielded though, and takes a phenomenal negative 12-yard roll backwards for a beautiful 28-yard of net. I don't care. I'm counting this as a 40-yarder on my book. The next ball was almost a disaster as I was getting ready to punt, going right because they had a double returner set, and the right guy was lined up really far forward, but the snap was higher than Snoop Dogg on the 20th of April, and when I landed and looked back to the right, there was a guy directly in my face, thanks to an assignment that was missed worse than my sophomore year of college, which, trust me, it was rough. So I yoinked back across my body to avoid getting blocked, get a nice little low punt going, and gets a decent roll before it's picked up 43 yards past the line of scrimmage, and then my fiance/camera camera moment stops recording right as a crackback block was happening, which you're going to see becomes a theme later on tonight. Now, punt attempt 3 is going to get its own video, but let's just say this. I sniffed out some whiffed blocks and made what felt like an incredible play by juking the blocker, but then after that, I didn't know what to do. I was running the wrong direction from what I was usually doing, so I resulted in me just getting tackled after doing something I thought was somewhat athletic, and I should have, in retrospect, 100% thrown it out of bounds. Anyway, that woke me up a bit, but also with a very important camp coming up, I didn't want it to happen again, so I was in a bit of a rush to get the ball off this time, still getting a nice turnover, but it only going about 40 yards, since I was not necessarily getting into the ball after what just happened. He also got a pretty good return on it, which I was a little annoyed about. Punt 5, I got out there and I really thought I had a chance to pin him, so what do? I lower the nose and go for just a nice little end-over-end pooch punt, and this catches it on the 4-yard line and then makes 2 guys miss to avoid being tackled inside the 10, and then returns it to the freaking 15, which I was pissed about because I just knew that off my foot I was going to pin him inside the 5. So then I really thought the game was going to be over. It was 8-0. There was like 5 minutes left in the game. I thought we had to go for it, but we decided to punt with less than 5 minutes left in the game. So what you're going to see is a little rough, but I genuinely thought that was my last punt, so I was completely unprepared. I tried to go out there and hit a little dart out of bounds since this guy was returning pretty boldly, but as you can tell, it's a mishit that hooked up the hash, but stuck to the true premise of being low, and I was just like, well, me right after it left my foot. And this guy took it across the field, got 2 uncalled crackbacks, and injured one of our players, all because I had a mishit. Now, that's the real penalty to bad punts, guys. That's the kind of stuff you really remember, is the guys who get injured on your play because you didn't get that ball out of bounds. But the game ended 8-0. We never scored, and all I'm saying right now is that if you're betting on my team, bet the under. But I had to shake off some nasty neck pain, hop on a plane, and go to Arizona, where there was 20 NFL scouts and a handful of CFL and USFL scouts waiting for us. Now, I'm just going to be as transparent as possible. I did not do what I needed to do. I wasn't able to get any film, and I didn't do the worst, but all factors combined, I just skated by in an event that I needed to attack. And I don't really know how to describe it, but due to a combination of just fatigue from my fight getting delayed till 4 a.m. the day before, still recovering from a lingering sickness, and just reconnecting with old friends, I don't know how else to say it, but I just lost focus of why I was really there. So here's the numbers. We only did 4 punts right, 4 punts left. Directionally right, I had a slight breeze in my face. Now, all of these balls looked pretty good off my foot except for the first one. Like, they had nice tight spirals. Just quite couldn't get them to hang or get them downfield, and I just wasn't really connecting for whatever reason. But coming back with directional lefts, I hit a 49.43, 54.2, ducked a 35er out of bounds, and then hit a 46.4.6. And to most, this would look like a decent set, but for what I'm capable of, it is beyond underwhelming to hit. So like I said, nothing terrible, and I didn't like leave embarrassed or crying, but just not feeling like I put out anything of substance. Admittedly, I feel defeated. Not the game I wanted to have, definitely not the showing at Zonder I wanted either, but I knew this wasn't going to be easy. I've got a long season ahead. I only added 1 more clip to the folder, and as always, the journey is going to continue.
1 week later.
At this point, I've played 1 preseason game and 1 season game and have kicked in front of 20 plus scouts and still haven't gotten the film that I feel like I really need, and this week is not going to be any easier, I tell you what. I got back from Phoenix, Arizona Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. completely trashed from exhaustion, having to take a red-eye flight, leaving just 2 days after Wednesday since I spent all day recovering. So Thursday, I was actually doing a little coaching of some of the young talent in Jonah DuPont, which helped me take a lot of mental reps, as well as sharpening up my form by working with Jonah. And then, luckily, when I got home, the Zonder film had been sent out, so I was ready to dissect it. It was only 8 punts, so it's not much to go off of, but the directional right punts were all filmed from the front, which is useful for me taking a look at the technical aspect of how I was striking the ball. Ball 1 looked like my drop fell a little bit inside, which was forcing me to cause that ugly short miss hit and swing across my body. Ball 2 was a bit of the same, and in self-diagnosing, I can thoroughly say up to this point, it looks like I'm overstriding, which is throwing off my timing, and can explain why I felt like I had less power. Ball 3 and 4 were kind of more of the same, and as I continue to reflect on it, it's just a bit frustrating, knowing that I could have made these realizations a little bit earlier, and that factor could have not only changed my whole day, but depending on how well I performed, could have changed my life in this very moment. But coming back the opposite direction with my directional lefts, I was really able to see that I was getting tall with my shoulders way too early, which is another thing that has to do with my overstriding, and it's something that I worked on with my coach Aaron Perez when I went to Florida, and we had actually fixed it before this, which sucks because I had messed it up back at this point. You can also tell coming this way that it just doesn't even look like I'm kicking that hard, which is playing back into the point that I had said in the last video that I just didn't really seem focused. But this takes me all the way to Friday. It was raining, but my boy Bruno Perlitsky was coming up, so I couldn't let a little water stop us from getting some work in that day. And I really had taken what I saw in my film yesterday and tried to apply it, especially since I had a game the next day. I was honestly kicking really well, especially under those circumstances. And hey, even Bruno was having a good day, and that makes it a good day to have a good day. So now this takes us directly in to day 3. Like I said, it's going to be a quick turnaround where I had to drive 3 hours south to take on the South Carolina Venom. And I went ahead and went with a black long sleeve and a beanie for the sideline because I learned my lesson last week after being freezing cold coming out of game time. So coming out for the first punt, I started to have this realization. I don't have a lot of time to get the ball off. This is quite possibly the fastest I've ever gotten a punt off, and I covered about a yard to do it, and it took me 0.85 seconds from when the ball hit my hands until it hit my foot. I still hit a pretty good ball for those circumstances, with it traveling about 41 yards in the air, and it landed inside the 5 where it was picked up around the 2 off of a quick bounce and returned to the 7, so I was pretty stoked about that. The next punt was a little rough. It came in low, and I thought I could reach for it, but it just hit the tips of my fingers and was rolling around on the ground, and as you can imagine, I was like, F me. But I made one guy miss, and there really wasn't a lane to my right, so I found myself running yet again to the left, and I still couldn't see a lane as I was pretty surrounded. But as I was going down, I saw my saving grace, Mike. But I was trying to underhand it to him, and I set him up to get absolutely demolished, making my career passing stats now going for -9 yards. And it's safe to say I won't be going pro at quarterback anytime soon. Anyway, that leads me to punt 3, where we had worked out the kinks of the last one, and I was ready to rock and roll, going just as fast as I did last time, if not a little faster, with it taking me only about 0.82 seconds to get this ball off, meaning that across 2 punts, I've taken less time than some people take to get a single punt off. But I was able to get this beautiful little Aussie that took a nice soft bounce down to the 6-yard line. So I'm not going to lie, off my 2 punts that actually made it past the line of scrimmage, having both of them start the opposing team inside the 10 felt pretty good. But then a miracle happened. Now, up to this point, you may remember, there have been a collective 8 points scored across the 2 games, with us finishing our preseason game 0-0 and our last game 8-0, and we have never scored. But after they had attempted to punt that ball back, we actually put points on the board. This excitement was quickly erased when I remembered that our kicker wasn't there, meaning yes, I had to kick off. Now, viewer discretion is advised because I quite literally cannot kick a ball off the ground, especially because we didn't even have a kickoff tee. So I had 0 warning, 0 warm-up, and 0 prep during this week for this. So, you know, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. But in another small miracle, we scored again before my next punt, meaning yes, we actually had our first lead with a score of 8-12, but I also had to kick again, but unfortunately that one didn't get recorded, but it's okay because you're watching the kick after halftime when I had to open us up, and all I was thinking was, don't kick it to number 19 on the left because he's a good athlete, don't do it. But would you freaking believe it, I kick it and right off my foot, guess where it goes? I looked up and saw that MFer going directly to number 19, and I got punished for it. But this led to my final punt of the day. We're holding a 4-point lead. It's late in the 4th and we're backed up, and I mishit it. It went about 44 yards, but was taken all the way back across the field to the 20, where luckily for us, we'd make a stop on offense, we'd get the ball back, but then we would fumble it on the 1-yard line, giving them the ball to lose the game. And that's the way it goes sometimes. So I've really got to do a better job getting the ball off quicker and getting some better punts whenever I'm rushing myself. But it also comes to a larger point that I'm struggling with. I can't punt like practice in a game. I quite frankly just don't have the time nor the room. So this is something I'm gonna have to learn to adjust to, as clearly my style of punting just straight up is not translating, and I'm tripping over myself trying to make game time adjustments in real time.
1 week later.
Last week left me a little defeated after an underwhelming performance, but with this week I had a whole new tactic I was going to try out. First, I had to stay on my weight training schedule. Monday, we always start the week with legs, so they'll lose their soreness by the end of the week. Tuesday, I did more of an upper body flow. Wednesday, I wanted to focus more on shoulders and explosive movements. Thursday was my rest day, and Friday, I just did some chest and tries to get that nice little pre-game punt. Now, for punting, here's where I really had to innovate. Monday, I did 100% 1 steps to 1.5 steps, where I started my right foot forward and focused on quick, short steps so I could get really comfortable with this style, because that's what I'm mostly doing in games. Tuesday was a lot more drill work, because in the past weeks, I clearly was just not performing at my highest ability and had a lot of kinks to work out. So I started at no steps and then worked up until I felt like I was hitting pretty clean again. Wednesday, I got rained out, so I just rested, and Thursday, I was feeling myself hitting some absolute nuclear punts. Friday, I recorded a little video for the second channel, so if you have a minute after this, maybe go give it a look. But this brings me to game day. Now, I have never felt more confident going into a game than this last Saturday. My hands were feeling fast, my legs were feeling powerful. We had this handsome 12-mile-per-hour wind, but most importantly, I had just upgraded my swag to a red long sleeve and a single red leg sleeve. And I'm still looking for your comments to see what else I should add to the game day swag, but that wind wouldn't stop me now that I was feeling and looking so good. So, taking the field in the first quarter, ball on the -46, and I caught a little bit too much of it, especially with the wind at my back, as it landed smoothly a couple yards deep into the end zone, giving me a 50-plus yard punt that the camera had a hard time focusing on, but I'm estimating it had around 4.4 seconds of hang. Ball 2, I had the wind in my face and it wasn't showing any signs of slowing, so I gave it a pretty decent boot and it went 42 yards in the air, but it hung up there for about 4.7 seconds, where it miraculously was not fair caught, and in fact, it was even returned and he probably should have gotten 5 yards on the return, but our coverage did a great job of forcing him to only accept a 2-yard gain.
Hit him now!
How'd you do? Good. Good.
Now, in the meantime, you may have noticed our snapper getting better, and that is in no short part to my long snapper, who's been getting some extra work in between his defensive reps on the sideline, and I am beyond grateful for his hard work and dedication to this part of the game. That's not his primary position, so huge shout out to that guy. That being said, not everything will be perfect, as my next punt snap came in a hair low, causing me to rush just a bit, hitting a lower but still 43-yard punt, and I gotta give huge credit to my team for getting down there and covering. But thanks to the world's wackiest field goal I think I or anybody has ever seen, we were still losing this game 10-6. Now, it was the fourth and the ball was at the -43. I was able to get off a really clean punt, and the returner wanted nothing to do with it after it spent about 4.65 seconds in the air, and it lands on the 10, where it takes a gorgeous bounce down to the 1-yard line. Now, at this point, I thought I had just won us the game because our defense was playing lights out, obviously them only scoring 10 points, and we held them like we had all game. When we got the ball back at the 15-yard line, we were unable to put up any points, ending the game. But I was feeling a lot better about my situation, adding a couple high-quality clips, including a 55-plus yard punt, a 42, 4.7-yard punt, and a sky punt down at the 1-yard line. So this game was definitely trending in the right direction, and as I start to put out tape at this level, I can actually show that I can have consistent games that aren't unlike games that you might see at the highest level.
1 week later.
And I'm finally starting to find my game time rhythm since I haven't played in a couple of years. I'm on a good diet, and my workout routine and weekly schedule I have for kicking is working for me pretty well, so now the key is to consistency with that schedule. So today, there's a bit of a new story that's going to be going on over the next couple of weeks during this series as I try to learn the valuable skill of kickoff. See, our kicker can't travel to away games, meaning there's no better time for me to learn how to do something like this than right now. So I went over to Dick's, and they didn't have the kickoff tee that I wanted, so I said, screw it, I'll just get this this pointy one, and next thing you know, I'm on the field doing some one-steps, trying to get consistent contact, and at some point, I'm probably going to have to go to a coach to push myself further, but with everything I've learned from being around high-level kickers for years and years, I should be able to at least get a couple of the basics down before I need additional help. That being said, this is going to be a long journey, so stay tuned to see if we can master this part of the game, but you all are used to my regular routine by now. I work out, I kick. Since I was feeling really solid this week, I just practiced the same things as last week, and let's go ahead and jump to game day. We're taking on the Sumter Sharks, and some projections have us losing in a final score of 40-0 in the Sharks' favor. That being said, I read through a lot of your advice on game day gear and decided to go with a single red arm sleeve on my guide hand and a navy sleeve on my kicking leg to spice things up for the game, but I'll be using more of your suggestions from here on out. I also busted out the Isaac Punts towel, so if you're trying to rock some of this sweet game day swag, you're in luck because I sell them on the iPunts merch website, and the link will be in the description, so go get yours. I'm also changing the game setting from my plays only to spectate mode when I'm not on the field, because there have been some requests to see how an offense can manage to even put up a whopping 14 points across 4 games, so we're gonna look into that. But as you can tell, coming out onto the field, we had another windy day, and the wind will be moving from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen. Warm-ups was going pretty well. I felt like I was striking the ball clean, mostly focusing on staying cool, calm, and collected while punting into this heavy wind. On the flip side, I noticed that the breeze was kind of going over my right shoulder when punting with it at my back, and with those familiar with both of my channels, you may realize this is a great time to pull out the rover punt, where I keep it low and drive a long spiral away from the returner to the left. I hadn't ever actually done this in a game because I only learned this style of punt after I was out of college, but given the right situation, I still wanted to practice it pregame in case I might bring it out. Then the game began, and we forced a fumble to recover the ball on the opposite side of the field on kickoff, which was nice, but then after that, we would mishandle the snap and go down, losing around 4 to 5 yards, throw a backwards pass that we'd miss out on, losing another 10, and then complete a pass into a soft zone coverage with it going about 7 yards to bring up 4th and 13, where we would go for a pass over the middle, throwing it a hair behind the receiver, which was incomplete for a turnover on downs. Now, typically our defense is this bright spot of our team, but I'll say this, the Sharks are very well coached with a team full of good playmakers, so when this play broke down, their QB was able to scramble and find and complete a pass across his body where our DB went for the ball instead of just taking the player down, resulting in a big chunk yardage play. After this though, our defense came in strong and forced a stop, leading to a turnover on downs in our favor. And this is where our offense was able to put together a couple of plays here and there, and we got the ball across midfield, heck, even across the positive 30, but then a big sack ruined that momentum, leading us to a 4th down on the plus 44 yard line, where you see me for the first time back on the reins. Now, I had a big wind at my back here, so looking at this field, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to hit. The grass was a little muddy, so I wanted to try a lower drop punt to see if I could get it to hit a wet spot and then sort of spin out and just stick inside the 5. And you know what? I put it at the 1 yard line and it was low, but I didn't quite get the bounce that I wanted, with it going through the end zone for a touchback. In hindsight, this would have been a good time to try a banana punt, but I had never done that punt in a game either, so I was a little timid about it. But the Sharks got the ball back and drove 80 yards to end the quarter and score in the first play of the second quarter, getting the score 6-0. We didn't do much with the ball when we got the ball back, with our offense now stalling between the minus 35 and minus 45 yard line, which is where I'd ultimately punt from, and now I was staring down a nice heavy little headwind, but having just kicked a touchback, I was trying to just place it between the 10 and the 20 yard line, aiming for a high fair catch. The ball went about 40 yards in the air with 4.8 seconds of hang time, which the returner wanted nothing to do with. Unfortunately, it bounced right into another player's arms, who took it 3 yards forward to the 18, which for the situation isn't the end of the world. The Sharks actually marched down and scored quicker than my videographer expected, giving us the ball back and leaving the score at 14-0, and we opted to switch quarterbacks to try to give our offense a little life. But a mishandled snap made sure that dream of offensive life would be dead for this drive, and a couple plays later I found myself trotting back out onto the field. So on 4th down though, we had some serious miscues on punt, and I was trying to figure out what was happening with our own personnel, and by the time I realized just where we were going wrong with personnel lining up. The play was blown dead, and I was given a delay of game penalty. So that's the second one I've had on my career. The snap came in just a bit high, and in my peripheral, I knew that I was going to be getting some contact. So I got the ball off as quick as I could, trying to draw the running into the kicker flag, and it luckily still went 35 yards in the air and rolled another 9 yard, giving me a net of 44, where one of my teammates thought the returner was going to try to make a play on it and picked it up, but that ball definitely could have kept going. And I'm still not sure how I didn't get that flag, by the way. They definitely made some illegal contact with me, but whatever. Maybe I need to practice more on flopping. Luckily, we got a turnover, but our offense, for whatever reason, still couldn't seem to find any rhythm. So 3 plays later, yours truly was back out on the field where I am facing down dang near the same situation as last time, but this time the ball's on the 20 instead of the 15, and nobody gets through the middle clean, so I get off a nice little 50-yard ball with 4.4 seconds of hang, which is definitely not bad into the breeze, but it gets returned to the 50-yard line after a couple of whiff blocks, and luckily for our team though, we only had a couple seconds left in the half, which brought us to halftime. The third quarter was actually quite eventful, with the Sharks coming out and scoring, bringing us to 20-0, but we tried our third quarterback, and then you know what? 2 drives in a row, he was able to connect for touchdowns, giving us a lot of life and bringing the score of 20-14. And I wish I could say we just used this momentum to roll through this game and absolutely dominate the Sharks, but that's not what happened. They actually rolled us after this. So jumping straight ahead to 4 minutes left in the game, I was out to punt with a score of 32-14, and I noticed something. The returner was lined up way to my right, and I had that wind going over my right shoulder once again, albeit it's not as strong as it was earlier in the day, and everything was set up for me to hit that rover punt. So now I'm feeling pretty good that I had practiced it, and I had kept telling myself I was gonna do it if given the opportunity. I have never been more nervous for a punt because I'd never actually done this style in a game, but you know what? When that ball got back to me, everything just clicked. I kept my drop low, extended it a bit, swung across my body through the sweet spot, and you know, all things considered, it was probably maybe a little bit lower than what I wanted, but that thing shot like a rocket off my foot, going what looks like 63 to 64 yards in the air across the field from the returner, so he couldn't get to it and return it, and then it rolls directly into the end zone, giving me a 68-yard punt, netting 48 of those yards. So that is my new career log.
1 week later.
Last week was a bye week, so lots of time working out and getting stronger while mixing in some kickoff work here and there, but the biggest, most important piece of added equipment is my new helmet cam in the form of the Ray-Ban Stories. Now you'll be under my helmet during games with me and you can see what I see, which I have been super pumped about, so ultimately I had to take them out on the field to try them out and get used to having them on my face. Ultimately, nothing really new happened during the 2 weeks off, so I don't need to bore you with the minor details, leading us straight to Game 5, where the 0-4 Outlaws were going to take on the 4-0 Fayetteville Commandos. This game, I decided to rock a navy loose fit long sleeve and a navy leg sleeve for the all navy look. Now, coming out, this was just about as ideal weather conditions as you could ask for. Now, there was about a 5-mile-per-hour breeze moving from right to left across the screen, which means naturally, I'd not a single time kick that direction. Now, their offense was pretty solid and they played football differently than most teams, just opting to go for the jump ball route. Like, literally their QB would just throw it up a bunch of times and let the receivers adjust and go get it. This did lead to an early interception with us getting the ball back on the plus side of the field, where just a couple of plays later, I was lining up for punt number 1 of the night. So here we get a better look at what they're running. So they kept most of their big guys on the field and it looked like they were in punt safe mode. So I tried to hold the ball for a second longer to give my gunners some time and then got off a decent little Aussie drop punt style. Yeah, then all my gunners thought that somebody else was going to grab it, leading to a touchback on what should have been perfect pin punt number 1 of the night.
Hey, spread. Run it.
But that's okay, because another turnover later on a miscue on the snap meant I was back out to punt before I knew it, with the ball on the minus 39-yard line. So now you're going to be able to see something you may not normally see from the wide view. So I noticed right off the bat my personal protector appeared to be on the wrong side. But we already had the cadence called up, so I was just going to ride with it. But When the ball was snapped, he committed the cardinal sin of personal protecting, which was running backwards and almost directly into me.
Left, 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 left. Damn, that shit was ugly. Bounce forward, baby. Bounce forward. I appreciate that. I thought y'all were gonna block that shit. Appreciate you. Good shit, guys. Good shit, guys. Good shit, guys.
So right there at the end, I tried to hook it because I thought he was a hair closer than what he was, but I think this gives a great view of what it looks like in the first person. When all was said and done, the ball still went 35 yards in the air past the line of scrimmage and then took another 9-yard bounce to net me 44 yards with the ball being down on the minus 15-yard line. Nothing to write home about, but could have been a lot worse if I bounced it off my own personal protector. That ended the quarter and the Commandos started clicking on this drive. They are able to take the ball the entire 85 yards to go score. They even ended up getting the 2-point conversion to add insult to injury. So at halftime I got re-warmed up, and you can see if I had that slight breeze up my back, I was slaughtering footballs. Here the other team started to get a little chirpy with me, gassing me up and trying to convert me over to their team in the next season. And it was not but our first drive back when I found myself on the field getting ready to punt once again. The other team didn't really look ready for the punt at all, but they had a 2-returner set, so I tried to get a little bit more into it. I didn't catch it as clean as I wanted to, so it was only a 48-yard, 4.6-second hang punt, but neither returner wanted to field it, probably because it fell so shallow thanks to that slight headwind, and we were able to get a good bounce with it going down to the 5-yard line.
Middle, 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 middle! You better fair catch that. You better fair catch that.
Now you a kicking motherfucker, bro.
You like that shit, don't you?
This way, bro.
What you mean?
You gonna do a lot more with us.
Here, our defense would make a heck of a stand for us to get the ball back inside the 50-yard line once again, but our starting QB was hurt, so we gained no yards, with me coming back out but moments later with the ball on the plus 32-yard line. Now, I wasn't too shaken as I walked out, but I did notice that they weren't going to be staying in the punt safe like last time because they had heavy overloads on both sides. Luckily, I didn't need a lot of room, just enough to get my foot into the ball, and that's what I did.
Hey, I'm going your way, A7. There you go. Come on now, don't try me with that. You're about to injure yourself. Come on now. I don't know we got that shit at the 1. I didn't even have to look at that. You like that, don't you? It's alright, 3. I'm nice with it.
Well, you keep talking, you gonna get your ass.
Oh, come on. Hey, come on, bro. I'm just chilling now. Come on now. Come on now. I'm just chilling now. Come on now. I'm nice though.
I was gonna kill your shit. That's why the block was moving.
I know.
Because if he didn't, he can't block.
But you missed. Huh? But you missed, baby. That's my job, baby. You missed.
Great coverage this time meant that they were starting on their 1-yard line yet again, and we were going to hold them from getting any traction inside their own end zone. That being said, things devolved on offense quickly without a QB. The entire fourth quarter, I'm not sure if we got a single offensive yard, but I know we got 3 interceptions in that corner alone. The one bright spot came on a 2-point conversion by the other team. We got a strip tackle for a scoop and score that I got the last bit of with my glasses, meaning that at the very least, we weren't shut out. A whole lot of unimportant stuff happened, and the game ended with a final score of 28-2.
Yeah, man.
Good shit, Katie.
Hey.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, man.
You got that nigga Jamie. Hey, good shit, man.
Hey, you know what I'm
Best player on the team.
1 week later.
The last game got canceled and I just stopped practicing. In my head, I was using it as a couple of rest days. Then I had to coach the La Tech punter who came up to get some work in, and then I got sucked into making draft content all day Thursday and Friday. So when Saturday rolled around, I realized I had kicked maybe 2 or 3 times in the past 2 weeks. But that wasn't going to stop me as I geared up for the 0-5 Outlaws to take on the 4-2 Virginia Royals. Before I left, I had to make sure I got suited up correctly. I decided to rock the cutoff compression shirt, a red arm sleeve, and a navy leg sleeve for the nice little flare. As you can imagine though, coming into this game, we were heavy underdogs. On top of the fact that we had yet to win a single game and our offense was sputtering like a 73 Ford Taurus being cranked up for the first time in over a decade, the Royals had one of the most stout defenses we'd play against all year and a solid offense to boot, only losing the 2 games they did to the undefeated teams in the league. To make matters worse, I got there to see that only 20 people from our team were able to make the 3.5-hour drive to Virginia to play. Now, our defensive key players were there and they came to play from the jump. Right after kickoff, we could see number 1 specifically just ball hawking the entire first drive to force a quick punt where we would drive the ball. We got 2 first down on the first drive, which wasn't something I was expecting, but our new quarterback was actually looking really good. Solid pocket awareness, accurate passes, and good decision making with the ball. These were all traits that we couldn't have ascribed to our offense previously. Now, a costly penalty and a sack did mean that we'd be in a punting situation on our first drive, so in my head, that was just a pipe dream that we'd get our offensive struggles sorted out for this game. On the field, I'm just looking around and I feel off. I'm not sure if it was the long 3.5-hour drive to get up here, not sure if it was just my defeatist mentality, but it was just a feeling of lack of focus, and trust me, it was about to show.
Hey, number 7's been juicing. What the hell? Damn. Let's go, Wolf. Hey, down there. I was distracted by 7's big ass. God damn, 7.
A really short punt that took a bad roll, and the best I could think of in the moment was, well, that's not good. I don't know how to describe it. I kind of just short-armed it, hit the front of the ball, and it was just an ugly mishit that I haven't hit in what has to be going on a decade now. But, you know, I'm not one for a pity party, so I just trotted off to the sideline where our defense was still holding strong. But any play now, I kept thinking something was going to break and they'd give up a big drive getting us, but then a couple plays into the drive, a miracle happened. An underthrown ball gets knocked up into the air and picked with more green in front of him than taking a cow to a pasture, and he brings it all the way back for a 63-yard pick 6. Now, we had to get the 2-point conversion done, and we did, and there's a flag. So now, instead of getting to attempt it from the 3, we have to attempt it from the 13 after a holding call, and miraculously, we did it. We, for the first time in a long time, had a lead. But it was still the first quarter, and they'd start their drive shortly after. And holy shit, we got the ball back. I told you number 1 was playing out of his mind, and he'd get out there and strip it away from the running back and fall on it for the turnover. The quarter ended shortly after that, and in a turn of events, we'd end up turning it over on down as my fears of our offense not getting much going seemed to be coming true. This was coupled with my fear that our defense would let up a big play, which also seemed to start happening. And what could you expect? Most guys were playing both ways. I could see our wheels starting to bend as we got more and more tired. In one last great effort though, we pulled off the miracle stop on 4th and goal to stem any bleeding. We wouldn't gain much ground, and I found myself back out there to punt again from the 16-yard line, and right now I knew how much my squad was tired. I was just thinking, get the ball out of bounds, or better yet, keep it away from the returner.
Oh! Just get that shit out of bounds, baby. That's all I care about.
And even though I was rushing, I still barely got it off and even took a little contact. In hindsight, I should have gone for a flop, but I just don't have it in me to be an excessive flopper. The ball ended up going about 40 yards with the roll, but just another crap punt. And as I sat there on the sideline near the end of the second quarter, it just hit me. We were winning this game, and there were only 20 of us, probably 19 playing both ways, meaning I was the only player doing just my one job, and I was doing it horribly. We held them off as the half ended, and I took some time to get my head in the right place. I knew I was better than what I had just done, and it was time to prove that the next time I was given the chance. That chance didn't come the entire third quarter. Our offense would put up big drives to get to the other side of the field, then stall out for a couple of plays and turn the ball back over on downs. The other team would get the ball back and do much less than our offense did, often ending drives with turnovers very quickly. As every single minute passed that we kept our lead, our 20 players started to feel like 40 players. then started to feel like 60 players until the fourth started, when it felt like our whole team had just started the game while their sideline looked like it ended an hour ago. Now, did this mean our offense would start clicking like a 40-year-old's knees on a jog? A bit, but we'd mostly still stall out. Even on this drive, with the ball on the 40, we'd come up a yard short, but this time I wasn't going to sit and let them go for it again. I went to the coach and told him I could pin it from here, so he gave a little faith to me and trotted me out on the field.
It's coming your way, it's coming your way! Middle! Don't do that. Come on now. Y'all gotta let that shit go, baby. No. He's at the 5. He's at the 5. Hey, it's what we do, baby.
Okay, my redemption arc was on the way. Catching it at the 5 and being down at the 6 was my type of play that I like to see. But the fourth quarter was still young, and it wasn't long until I'd find myself out in a similar situation. This time from 4 yards closer, and I could tell these guys were out for blood.
Hey, they caught a timeout. Oh, it's ready.
There you go. Down it!
Luckily, I got a pretty decent bounce. The ball hit at the 8 and checked back to the 12, so I was 2 for 2 for keeping them inside the 15. Our defense would bend but not break once again, forcing a turnover on the plus side of the field with minimal time left on the clock. 3 run attempts, 3 timeouts, and it would be 4th and a small mile with 1 minute left.
Alright, here's the scenario. We're about to win the game here. I gotta put him away. So let's get a good one. I think I'm going. Oh fuck! Can't have that happen. There you go, punt.
It was my time to shine.
Hey, they're overload left. Overload left. They're over left. Middle! Hey, go cover, baby. Oh, they're not getting that shit. Come on. Get him down. Come on, get him down, baby. There you go, I got you. Got you, bro. Good point. Appreciate you, man.
A good enough punt to start the returner inside the 15, and even better coverage to get the ball out once again, even though the Royals would pounce on it at the 10. But my last 3 punts had started them on the average of the 9-yard line, and I was feeling like that my redemption arc for this game was complete. Just 1 part left, 1 drive, 30 seconds left to hold them off, and every play was excruciating to watch, but then a pass to the middle forced them to kill the ball with a single second left in the game.
Come on, baby. Last play of the game, baby. Come on. It's a double pass. Down it. Game over.
The setup for the double pass, the ball was thrown, underthrown, and picked off, and the game ended with a final score of 8-0 in the only way the Triad Outlaws could possibly have wanted to win. But what I'm most proud of is how our 20 guys from Greensboro marched up to Richmond and stunned the semi-pro world.
1 week later.
2 weeks ago, I had to go to Orlando, forcing me to miss a game, and in my absence, the Outlaws put up a huge win against the Raiders with a final score of 32-10, giving us a 2-game win streak. So when I got back, every game was a must-win if we wanted to make it to the playoffs, bringing us directly into our rematch with the Commandos. Yeah, the team that threw all over us a couple weeks ago. I decided to go with the Navy long sleeve and the Navy leg sleeve as the swag for this game. Getting out onto the field, I went ahead and started warming up, not knowing what type of game it was going to be. With all of our playoff pressure building up into this game, the tensions were as high as I'd ever seen them. The first couple of drives were nothing special. Steve, number 1, is playing out of his mind once again and has to be the league defensive MVP at this point. Our offense is sputtering, but we're seeing glimpses of it being put together together once again with our quarterback playing well, but we just can't quite keep the wheels turning. My first punt came early and it was almost a disaster. As I'm looking over everybody, everything seems fine and all blocked up. So I was just gonna sit back and swing on this one. But as I was catching the ball out of the corner of my eye, I noticed number 4 coming off the edge scot-free.
Damn! Hey, we gotta block the edges, man!
I was pretty upset because the ball was supposed to go way further than that, but when you got a guy coming free like that, you don't have time to hit a perfect ball. You just kind of have to pray for a better bounce. I went to the sideline and got the guy on the edge coached up, but then we didn't punt again for the entire game. Minutes kept going, tension kept rising as our offense continued to spin its wheels. Eventually, it just completely boiled over the top and we had a meltdown. We argued with the commandos, we argued with the refs, we argued with ourselves, heck, we were arguing with the fans. It was just too much all at once for the Outlaws. And worse yet, being in such a rush to get the ball off, I actually had pulled something in my kicking leg. I tried shaking it off at halftime, but couldn't really get rid of that tight feeling in my leg. But as awful as it was, the game did eventually end with a final score of 31-0 in favor of the Commanders. And with that went our playoff hopes and dreams. Everybody was defeated and it was just sickening being around. Coming back on Monday, I was trying to figure out how I was supposed to treat my leg. I knew what it needed, which was rest, but between making football content and prepping for next week, I wasn't sure when I was going to be able to get the rest that it needs to be 100%. But somehow, despite the pain, I was still able to get out 3 times this week and have some pretty good sessions. Then, on Friday, the Outlaws got some news that would completely change everything. The Raiders, the team we had defeated 2 weeks prior, had folded, meaning that they would forfeit their next games and their spot in the playoffs, opening up one more spot for your Outlaws, assuming we could win our game Saturday, taking us straight to that game, a must-win game against the Bengals. I asked you all for what fit I should wear going into this game since it had big playoff implications, and you guys delivered some good suggestions, and I ended up going with the red sleeve on my non-dominant arm and black tights. And honestly, I think it looked pretty smooth, so thanks N for the suggestion. This game, I wasn't going to be messing around. I had taken what happened last week personally, and I knew I couldn't let my team down like that again. Also, if I wanted a chance at being seen by anybody, the only 0.001% of a chance of that happening in this league was going to be in the championship. So punt 1 comes around, and I can tell immediately by body language and scheme, they're not rushing. But just in case, I still try to go my regular speed. The snap had come in a bit low, so I didn't get under it that much, but it was still around a 50-yard punt in the air, and it only had 4 seconds of hang, so that's why there was a bit of a return, so I knew I had to get more beneath the ball in the future. Also, a common theme for this video was me forgetting to turn my helmet cam on, so I only got about 3 punts in the first-person view, which is a bit annoying, but it is what it is. It didn't matter much because a few plays later and I found myself on the field again. This time we were kind of in that awkward gray zone, so I didn't want to put everything into the ball. In hindsight, I should have gone for a sky punt. I hit a really clean 48-yard punt, but the returner caught it in stride and was able to take it across the 20, so not too hot for the brand. Our game of attrition was paying off though. They had no punter, so we were able to get the ball back in great field position, march down a couple plays later, and score at the start of the second quarter. They didn't do too much after getting the ball back, eventually punting it to us where we started to click offensively. We were driving down the field and picking up first downs, and even got to the opposing 30-yard line. Little did I know though that I was going to be trotting back out there with a ball on the plus 28, forced to punt again. Now, it may not have looked like it, but I put as little as I could into that punt. I just don't practice from that very often, since even at a high school level, you'd likely be attempting a 45-yard field goal before you'd be punting it. So it was just a weird situation to be in, but yeah, I probably should have just tried to put it out of bounds. Ironically enough, the first play of that drive though, they threw a pick 6, so in the end, I guess it didn't really matter too much as we took a 2-score lead going into half. I was able to really get warmed up again at halftime, so I was feeling good when my next punt of the half came around.
Left, 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 left!
A nice 50-yard, 4.7 hang punt that was fielded inside the 10-yard line. can't be mad about that. It did suck that I felt like I had to keep pulling my punches on these punts because of the lack of the field in front of me, but this was one of the few balls that felt really clean coming off my foot. It wasn't too long again though before I found myself punting, this time from the positive 40-yard line. I tried to put a little backspin on it, but gosh, I just couldn't seem to get the ball to bounce my way, which was a common theme this game, despite it hitting inside the 5. It was another touchback. My final punt though came at the start of the 4th. 2 backspin punts not going my way. I wanted to try something new, and the ball was on the positive 42, so I was going to try to sky it high and short.
Oh, get the ball! I told you I was going to put it up there.
It went almost perfectly. 40 yards on the dot, 4.96 seconds of hang, but it checks ever so slightly forward since nobody on my team caught it, with it bouncing just inside the goal line. The game ended shortly after with a final score of 18-6, and just like that, we had made the playoffs.
1 week later.
So far, it's been a long and windy journey. The Triad Outlaws opened up our season completely defeated. We started off 0-5, but then, slowly but surely, we decided we were going to start turning things around. On week 6, when a small but dedicated group of us traveled up to Virginia to upset the Royals, one of the top 5 teams in the league. This spurred a comeback train that, while not flawless, was enough to earn us a play-in spot for the playoffs, where we are today with the 3-6 Triad Outlaws rematching the team we played 2 weeks ago to even get here. Now, last time we played, it was a one-sided match. We shut out their offense and did enough of our own offense to win 18-0. Coming back today, I decided to rock the all-navy look because I knew we were going with the red tops, so I knew it'd look pretty clean. Our offense came out the gate striding pretty well, and the tone was clear. Even if we didn't score on the first drive, we could tell who was the hammer and who was the nail. I found myself out there for the first time of that drive with a ball on the plus 45-yard line, and I knew exactly what time it was.
Good shit, guys.
I busted out the pitching wedge with a nice soft bounce to pin the ball on the 12-yard line. I may have played it a hair too safe, but at this point things would devolve for a couple of punts, so just strap in. We get the ball back and go 3 and out once again, and I see us lining up at the 38-yard line. I have a slight breeze up my back, and I was absolutely demolishing balls during the warm-up. I was thinking about how I was going to crush this ball, and, well, you'll just see.
Left side, left side, left side. That's where they're coming. Mother.
Yep, it slipped out of my hands. I watched this play on the sideline no less than 40 times. I mean, my entire career I have dropped exactly 1 snap, and it was when our QB had just fallen on it, so it was slick and just slipped through my hands after being a little high and a little left. Here, it was in my hands and just, like I said, just dropped out. But our defense immediately got us the ball back, but man, did that play suck. Things would turn around though as we'd start revving our engine on offense. We were able to put together 2 scoring drives and convert the 2-point conversions both times. The first one making the score going into halftime 14-0. The second half it'd be a little bit more of the same, and it wasn't long until I'd be back out. As I was looking though, I noticed something not so good.
Ah, fuck!
It's my hand, bro. Relax.
I'm playing. Hey, I gotta point it out, bro. You know I need that.
They were bringing 3 men on both sides, and we only had 2 blockers. As I was catching the snap, I had another scenario where I had to just get the ball off to avoid a block. So that was a pretty annoying 2-punt situation back to back, but we went to the sideline and made sure that that wasn't going to happen again and had backup plans for in case it did. Luckily, we'd score 1 more time, and then at the start of the 4th quarter, I'd get my last punt of the day.
It's bouncing left! It's bouncing left! Right into his hands.
just a nice little 40-yard, 4.9-second punt to pin them inside the 10. From here, our team would go on to win the game 22-0, which means next week it's time to go take on the number 1 seed in the playoffs. Wait, because it actually didn't happen that way. We never got to go play the Sumter Sharks. You see, right before we were about to travel, we got the news that a lot of our guys weren't going to be able to make it to the game. And I mean a lot. We might have ended up going down there with only, 15 to 18 players, which just isn't enough to play a football game. It greatly increases the chance of injury, so we forfeited. And just like that, in the most fitting fashion a story like this could end, the season just unexpectedly stopped. Now, reflectively, there were some good things, there were some bad things. I think I got some promising game film, but at the end of the day, I'm just not sure if it's going to be enough to push me over the top. Now, this isn't the end of the journey. I've got other opportunities coming up. I'm going to be going to the XFL tryout here in October and attempting to compete for a spot at one of those leagues. On top of that, I'm going to be continuing to pursue any opportunity that becomes available to me, whether it's European leagues, Mexican leagues, or any other minor league type situation. But at the end of the day, this is just one step in a longer journey that I'm going to be taking for the next couple of years. So thank you for coming along today. Now, if you've made it this far and you'd like to continue supporting me, the number one way to do that is just by liking and subscribing, maybe even sharing it with somebody who has a passion for football and likes watching little guys try their best to make it onto the big stage. Another way you could support me is just by watching some more of the content and just enjoying it and taking it all in for what it is. But if you really want to take it a step further, I do have a Patreon as well as some merchandise that you can consider donating to or purchasing. That would really help me in a very direct way. But at the end of the day, I just thank you for making it this far. So as always, I hope you guys have an amazing day. And peace. I'll see you in season 2.